Good morning, 5th grade. Today we're going to continue learning about the Civil War. The title of our text today is called Raising Armies. And before we get started on our text, we want you to complete this quick write that says, describe a time when you were forced to do something that you did not want to do. Why did you do it, and how did you respond? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you are ready for the focus question. Our focus question today is, what is the main idea of the text? And we have 3 vocabulary words for you. The first one is drafting, and that's when you select a person for a specific purpose. And so this is an example, this poster is an example of the draft when people were forced to join the army. People were forced to join the army. That was called a draft. The second word is recruit, and you don't have a definition right beside you, so get ready to fill in this space. And it's when someone tries to persuade someone else to do something. When someone tries to persuade someone else to do something, they are recruiting them. And you could draw a line to this poster that says, I want you for the U.S. Army. So that person isn't being forced to join the Army. They're just trying to persuade them or convince them to join the Army. And then the last one is object. That's when you refuse to do something. Press pause to fill in your definition for recruit and draw your lines, and play when you are ready for the read aloud. Go ahead and turn the page and turn in your book to page 14 that says Raising Armies. And just like with all nonfiction texts, we're going to turn that title into a how or why question so that we can figure out our main idea. And so the title of the text is Raising Armies. And so we really want to think about who was raising armies to help us develop our question. And we know that the Union and the Confederate States were raising armies. And so we know why they were about to go to war, so we don't need to say why were they raising armies, but we don't know how. So we could write in this blank for a how or why question, how did the Union and Confederate States raise armies? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you are ready to read. And as we're reading the paragraph, we want to underline evidence that answers this question, how did they raise armies? When President Lincoln heard that Fort Sumter had surrendered, he called for 75,000 militia troops to protect Washington, D.C. Over the coming years, Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson Davis asked for volunteers every few months. In 1862, the Confederate Congress approved conscription, the drafting of men into the Army. The U.S. Congress did the same in 1863. Many people objected to the draft, and there were riots in New York in 1863. But in the end, both sides put millions of soldiers in the field. So if we go back, I underlined the sentence that said, he, meaning President Lincoln, called for 75,000 militia troops to protect Washington, D.C. And then both Lincoln and Jefferson Davis asked for volunteers. So get ready to write in 1B. We know that both sides increased the number of men in their armies by drafting men or forcing men to fight in their armies through a lottery system. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for number 2. It says, how did people on both sides respond to the military draft? And if I go back in my text, after it talks about how both sides drafted men into the Army, it says many people objected to the draft, and there were riots in New York in 1863. And so I would write that quote for box number 2 because it shows me that many people objected to the draft or they did not like it. Press pause to write down this quote in box 2 and play when you are ready for number 3. It asks us to go to the picture and caption titled 7th Regiment, and that's at the bottom of page 14. And we want to know what is the author saying and then what is the author doing. It says, when Lincoln called for 75,000 troops, New York City sent its 7th Regiment. That's the name of the group of people that were sent to war. Here, people cheer as the men march through the train bound for Washington. And that picture is actually, this is the picture that it's referring to. The 7th Regiment marching through the streets of New York, and the people of New York are cheering them on as they go to the train. Okay, and so we're thinking about what is the author trying to say. And so we know, get ready to write this down. When Lincoln called for volunteers, New York City sent its troops. And people responded by cheering on the soldiers as they marched to the train. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for 3B. And so in our text it says that the people in New York were objected the draft and there were riots. And so a riot is a fight. It caused people to fight and destroy property because they were so angry. But in this picture we see the people of New York cheering on the people who are being sent to war. And so this paints kind of the opposite picture of what the author was saying in the paragraph. And so when we're thinking about what is the author doing, the author is providing new evidence for how New York responded to Lincoln's call for soldiers. I'm going to say that again. Get ready to write. The author is providing new evidence for how New York responded to Lincoln's call for soldiers. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 4. In box 4, we're at the bottom of page, this is 16, bottom of page 16 that talks about bounty money. And we're looking at this caption and this picture at the bottom left-hand corner. It says, many disliked the way some regiments recruited. Criminals called bounty jumpers would join up to receive bounty money, then desert the army. Later, they used an alias to join another regiment. So when we're thinking about what the author is saying, get ready to write. Some men took advantage of the money soldiers got for signing up for war. I'm going to say it again. Some men took advantage of the money soldiers got for signing up for war. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for 4B. And it asks us what the author is doing. And the author is providing new evidence for why some people joined the army. The author is providing new evidence for why some people joined the army. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. It says, how did the need for soldiers affect people on both sides? How did the need for soldiers affect people on both sides? Let's go back in your text. We know that both sides recruited people to the army through just like regular volunteers or by forcing them in the draft. And I want you to think about how that would affect the people who are being drafted and the families that they left behind. Press pause to write your paragraph, and if you finish early, you can go back and read Night at the Museum.